What is going on in Venezuela? There are so many different takes. Hey, good morning, Alex. Thank you so much for making yourself available. It's Tuesday, the 6th of January at 3 minutes past 8 UK time. We finally managed to speak.
Yes, always a pleasure, Rich. Good to join you again. And good morning to everyone out there.
Yeah, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world, whenever you are in the world. Okay, so Alex, I know you've given interviews elsewhere about what's happening in Venezuela, and I know you will have probably listened to other people and what they've said, including Tom Luongo and Susan Kokinder and others. Not you may not have listened to
But
them.
okay, yeah, that's true. That's true. But please, rest assured, those mean nothing. This is the real deal.
Well, when we record this coming Friday with Alex, with Susan and Tom, make sure you say that. Okay, so we're going to get the real deal. All right. So, what is the real deal, Alex?
Okay, so right out of the gate, I have no freaking clue. I have to say this, the events in Venezuela caught me on the road, so I was traveling. I had limited online time. But let's say over the last 36 hours, I've put myself really through everything I could find about Venezuela. And I find that the people who know what's going on are the least credible ones. The people who have the whole thing mapped out, what Trump has done, why he has done it, and what's the agenda. I feel that their analyses are always based on so many assumptions that they don't know whether they're true or not, that they can part in they can go in any direction.
Right.
And usually the direction that they choose to go is continuity of policy, um, division of labor, and Trump being the tool of the Western Empire. I don't find it very credible at all. Other
Alex,
explanations,
can I just come back to that, right? So when
yeah.
you say you don't really know, well, I suppose that's the end of the video. Thank you very much, and look forward to doing the next one with you, right? On a more on a more serious note, so one of the things that I see is there's the immediate, obvious, pat interpretation that, oh, it's about the oil. Oh, it's US hegemony. All that stuff
Yes,
that's regular and commonplace
yes,
and that the mainstream media just keeps pointing out to, right?
yes,
Then there's all these other things. Is it about the drugs? Is it about banking and dark money? Is it about the CIA and MI6 drug narco terrorists? Is it about trafficking? Is it about oil for China or lots and lots? Is it about the Smartmatic machines? Is it about just Trump's just going to be a hegemon on his own and the Monroe Doctrine? There's all these other explanations. And the thing that I notice, referring to a particular medical intervention, there was the obvious pat promoted answer that it's safe and effective, safe and effective, safe and effective. But then there's all these other interpretations, these other ways of looking at it that people didn't do.
yes,
And then what
correct.
we're fed is this easy answer, easy solution. And I think that's what you're talking about.
Yes, in large part. You see, um, I tried to inform myself on the issue of Venezuela as much as I could, and I found that everybody's guessing.
Mm,
And then I even put myself through a few hours of listening to people who are unquestionably pro-Western global rules-based order, right? People like Alistair Campbell, former chief of staff of Tony Blair, right? Uh, uh, Rory Stewart,
former
one of the
MP.
one of the yeah one of the completely um, emblematic products of the British Empire. Educated at Eton. How do you pronounce that
Eton,
school?
Eton.
Eton. Educated at Eton and All Souls in Oxford, and been to Afghanistan, been in the military, been in the diplomatic corps, founded charities in Afghanistan. One of those people. John Bolton.
Oh no,
Uh,
he's right. We want to listen to John Bolton.
yeah, well, at any rate, like these are going to be people who know something about foreign policy, who know something about the clash of the two systems. And so I thought that maybe they will have a better appreciation about what Trump is doing, but they don't. They all agree on one thing. They hate Trump, but they can't make up their minds. I mean, I think even Rory Stewart said something like, it is absolutely uncertain. So everybody's guessing.
Mm.
So I want to say, all those people who know what Trump is doing usually come from the place, I hate Trump, Trump bad, and this is why he's doing it. And usually they'll throw in Israel and Iran and oil and all of these things. None of that is clear. What is clear is that what we saw was theater because I think it's just next to impossible to conceive that a number of US helicopters would fly low over Caracas, land at the right place at the right time, abduct Nicolás Maduro and his missus without losing a single helicopter, a single soldier, and get out. Mission accomplished. That is next to impossible unless there was an agreement. Now, agreement with who? I don't know the answer to that question. Many people are assuming that it must be Delcy Rodriguez, the acting president, who was the vice president under Maduro and whom Maduro appointed. So she's his hand-picked successor, and she's a woman with great credential in the Chavista movement. So not not likely a sellout. We don't know, but unlikely that she's a sellout. And then we have these pictures of Maduro coming to the United States, and he doesn't look like he just got downgraded from a president of a nation to a prisoner. He looks kind of, he's smiling, he's giving two thumbs up, changing his outfits frequently, and so forth. So the whole thing is very, very strange and extremely bizarre. So we have to ask ourselves, what is this about? Is it about oil? I don't think it's about oil because Maduro was already offering the oil. He was, let's remember, the Trump mobilizing US forces in the Caribbean to saber rattle in front of Venezuela has been going on for 4 months before they abducted Maduro. So everybody had plenty of time to prepare, but there was also plenty of time to talk.
And
And we
make
know that
deals
Delcy
and
Rodriguez
make deals. And Trump is a
and
deal
make
maker.
and make deals, yes. And so I think about 2 weeks ago, Trump was saying, "Oh, we're very close to a deal." Okay, he didn't say what that means. Uh, about that time, Nicolás Maduro was talking about his conversations with Trump. And one thing that I was surprised about is that Maduro was saying that they were very cordial and respectful on both sides. So that all sounded good. So can we exclude the possibility that the deal was actually between Trump and Maduro, or Trump's administration and Maduro, or Maduro's government? That Trump said, I need this, and Maduro said, all right, you leave my government intact, check. So there was no regime change. I hear people talking about regime change. There was no regime change. This is the Chavista regime minus Maduro. Delcy Rodriguez is in charge. There was no change in the military hierarchy. Uh, there was no change at all other than Maduro being extricated. We don't know what this is all about, but I don't think it's about drugs. At least it's not about drugs in the direct sense of them stopping drug flow from Venezuela because there was no drugs flow from Venezuela, maybe minor amounts. Um, Oil, that's not the reason either. I mentioned already, Maduro was offering it.
Yeah.
Second, Venezuelan oil sector is operating at maybe 20% of what it was
Alex,
before.
if
Yeah.
sorry, if I can move you on, because um, I don't know if you know this fella called Tom Luongo. He's a chemist. He and I talked about the oil. Rather, he told me
Yeah,
about the oil in Venezuela on
the name
Saturday.
rings a bell. Yeah.
It does ring a bell, right? So it's not about the oil. So what else? Because I just want to, because I'm conscious of time as well.
Um, then there's the voting the voting machines things. You know, Dominion voting systems, Smartmatic, certain other technologies that appear to have been outsourced to Venezuela in part. Well, some people say they were created in Venezuela. I don't know. But the strange thing is, and then like I had to go back to certain speeches by Sidney Powell because
Mm.
some of this information goes back to 2020 when they were saying there was like a flood of testimonials about irregularities in the voting process in 2020 and suspicions that the election was rigged. And then it turns out that everywhere it was this Dominion system and Smartmatic because in a number of these key states we had the stop of counting at the same time in 5 or 6 states.
Yeah,
And then when it resumed, suddenly Biden had an advantage over Trump, whereas Trump was way ahead before. And then they traced that to Dominion voting systems and Smartmatic, and then the Dominion executives in the United States just disappeared, and they moved their offices. And then it turned out that one of the that Dominion Systems had an office in Toronto, which they shared with Lord Malloch Brown. And Lord Malloch Brown, maybe not a household name, but a close associate of George Soros. So
yeah. And
there's a
Tony Blair.
whole massive can of worms there that was never really pursued. All of these allegations, all of these irregularities that were reported, they weren't really prosecuted, investigated. Nobody was really prosecuted. Go ahead.
Well, and Lord Malloch Brown is also an associate of Tony Blair. The CEO of Smartmatic is Venezuelan. Sidney Powell provided evidence which suggested there were four Venezuelan ministers and former ministers involved with Dominion and Smartmatic. She presented all that evidence. She had an impeccable record before 2020, and then she was disbarred and she was deplatformed.
Yeah.
And what you're pointing
Yes.
to is what's not being talked about.
Yes, and then the controlling ownership of Smartmatic was a Venezuelan businessman, and you don't just get that kind of business because you're a capable businessman. Usually, the powers that be designate some tycoon oligarch type person who's going to be the front because the rest of the ownership is all hidden in the spider's web of offshore jurisdictions that are non-transparent, and so we don't know who's behind it. But it's quite likely that Nicolás Maduro knows a whole lot about these things, and that if he was going to cooperate, his life was in danger. And so maybe he needs to be in a witness protection program of sorts. And maybe this is why he was brought to the United States, and maybe this is why he himself made the deal. You leave my country alone, you leave my government alone. Um, I'll I'll come along for to cooperate with you guys because I don't want war, I don't want sanctions. So I think it'll take time to really understand what really happened there. I will continue to pay attention to what's being said about on Times, The Telegraph, The Guardian, all of these deep state actors because when you see them frazzled, vexed, you know that they are on the losing side. If they start suddenly finding Trump to be presidential and a great leader and all of these, then it's time to be worried. Also, reactions from Russia and China seemed a little bit like token condemnations without their heart really being in it.
Mhm.
And then Trump was saying, yeah, it's not, Xi Jinping's not going to be a problem. And then Xi Jinping saying, Chinese interests in Venezuela are going to be protected by law, meaning, we have legally binding deals and contracts there, and they're going to be fulfilled. So it doesn't. Okay, there's another dimension to this. People go back to the National Security Strategy document, and then it says Monroe Doctrine, and then Marco Rubio was talking about Monroe Doctrine and saying like, we don't want our enemies to have infrastructure and foothold in our hemisphere. And then everybody assumes that when Marco Rubio talks about our enemies, that he's talking about Russia and China and maybe Iran. But
He could be
what we
talk,
know,
he could be talking about another entity, which I'm going to come to in a moment. Forgive me, Alex,
yeah.
because I think that I want to take you in that direction because I'm interested in that. So as a heuristic, there was the medical intervention, the very, very serious and dangerous medical issue that terrorized the whole world a few years back. And we were all directed towards this safe and effective medical intervention, safe and effective, safe and effective. And then there are all these other interpretations and factors, but we just kept being funneled in that direction. And then with regards to the greatest threat that humanity faces, which is carbon dioxide, we're all directed towards the danger of carbon dioxide, and what's being ignored is photosynthesis, the um, the magnetosphere, the effect of the sun, outer planets, or the trade currents, all of that. Nothing about those. So with this issue, and it's the same people, it's the same mouthpieces. It's the oil, Trump bad, imperial hegemon, and then nothing about, well, what about the Smartmatic machines? And uh, what the other countries have said, and what about them? Well, a little bit about the Monroe Doctrine to make Trump bad. But what about this other entity and the maxim of following the money?
Yes, nothing because it's complicated and these oil narratives are simplistic. And I think that the reason why this is the predominant angle in the media, not just mainstream but also social media, is because there is like a cottage industry of demonizing Trump
Mhm.
that is feeding talking points into the information space without really doing any rigorous investigation. And it's kind of created an anti-Trump groupthink that is very easy to latch onto. And if you go against this groupthink, it's very easy for them to label you as, Trump's useful idiot, Q-tard, whatever labels they use to dismiss it. It's kind of it kind of reminds me as being labeled anti-vaxxer 5 years ago.
Or climate
It's the
denier,
same thing because there was like this big or climate denier. There's this big group of people who take the problem, they latch on to their assumptions, which may or may not be correct, and then whatever is challenging their worldview, they don't think like, oh, that's interesting. We haven't explored this angle, but maybe we should because we don't know whether it's true or false. Immediately they go, oh, trust the plan, Alex? You're a cutard, and things like this. But I
yes,
think, given the fact that we don't really know, I think we can't just shut ourselves off to one possibility, eliminate all others, and then go Trump bad, Trump bad, Trump bad, because we don't know. Trump is evidently acting like a thug and a gangster, but rather than condemning Trump, I would rather like to understand what he's doing and why he's doing it. Because in his acting like a thug, he's pretty much wrecking the post-World War II global order. Now, do we have to be attached to that post-World War II global order and why we should be? And after all, from practically from before day one in the office, Trump administration pretty much announced that. They said uh, post-World War II global order is more than obsolete. It has been weaponized against us, meaning the United States, and the new reality are multipolar integrations. So in this sense, is Trump being true to what he has promised and announced? In a way, yes. He didn't promise regime change in Venezuela, but he didn't do that either. He just brought Nicolás Maduro to the United States. It's unclear why, but we'll find out. I would also continue to watch, let's say, share prices of entities like JP Morgan, like ExxonMobil, and things like that, because if Trump worked on their behalf, I think that markets in their collective wisdom will recognize that. But that won't be overnight. So if we see shares of ExxonMobil go up sharply, then maybe there's something there. If we see JP Morgan share prices go up a lot, maybe there's something there. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Alex. I don't normally rush you like this, but there's so much wisdom in what you have to say, plus in what I have to say, maybe, right? I think you'd make a great child protection social worker, by the way, because this is what I have to do. There's what goes on, and then I got to watch out for being groomed by the loudest voice, and then look
Yes.
dispassionately and dig in. Well, what's going on here? So I've had situations where it looks like the man is the perpetrator of abuse. And everybody thinks so, and everybody else thinks so, and everything like. And I start digging in. Oh no, it's actually the mother in this instance. And I got taken in. Right.
Yes. Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
reality
yeah.
is that you and I don't know. However, what we do know, what I think we both agree is what moves the world, what people are interested in is money. And why they're interested in money is because it gives them power and influence and access to resources. And I did mention to you before we started talking about the City of London offshore banking offshoots
Yes.
throughout the Caribbean,
Yes.
lacking regulation, lacking transparency, lots of opacity. We don't know anything about what goes
Trillions
through.
upon trillions upon trillions of dollars sloshing around there. And then one thing that nobody's discussing, well, it's not part of the mainstream narrative, is that if you look at the United States today, we see that it's been the target of mass migrations, which is a destabilizing factor.
Yep.
And we see that it's on the receiving end of a huge flow of illegal drugs, which is also a destabilizing factor. And we also see that this is, in a way, not so dissimilar to opium wars that a certain entity in the world has specialized in for over the last 100 and almost 200 years, right?
Mm,
And the United States is on the receiving end of that. Where's that coming from? Well, not really from Venezuela, but it is coming from places like Mexico and Canada. Uh, at the beginning of Trump administration, the largest ever lab that was producing deadly fentanyl that's costing the United States about 100,000 overdose deaths was busted in Canada. And the FBI guy in charge of that investigation, I forget his name, he was talking about Canadian banks being involved in money laundering for this. So, this is, when you don't have large invading armies to overrun a country, then you do these kinds of things. You do opium wars to subjugate a nation. You do immigration, uncontrolled illegal immigration. And so I think that when people in the Trump administration say we don't want our enemies to have, infrastructure in our hemisphere, this could be true to the original Monroe Doctrine, because the original Monroe Doctrine wasn't about colonizing and brutalizing everybody else to be your slave and sources of natural resource wealth. It was about preventing the global powers at the time, like France and Great Britain, of setting up systems at your borders or near your borders with which they would destabilize your nation, maybe partition it, cause civil strife, civil wars, and so forth, as happened in 1850s, sorry, 1860s. The French brought their troops to Mexico, the Brits had their troops in Canada, and they were prepared to invade. And They had spies, they had special forces that were infiltrating the United States. Ultimately, these networks ended up organizing the assassination of Abraham Lincoln.
Yes.
So all of these things could be informing the thinking at the Trump administration. Why Maduro? Why now? I don't know.
Okay. I do. But that's for another video. So people need to subscribe, comment, and like to find out, right? But in terms of the dark money flow, because you have talked on previous videos about the massive amounts of money that's made through drugs, that's made through trafficking. What we haven't talked about is the CIA, MI6, Bush family drug cartel, and the trillions that they make that could be going through these offshore banking entities in the Caribbean, and that this why the mainstream media won't talk about that, and even the most of the independent media is because it's dangerous, but also they're pointing to themselves as the culprits, as proxies of the City of London. So the City of London operates in the shadows, like all good, I don't mean morally good, effective abusers. They operate in the shadows. And then sometimes, perhaps what Trump is doing is fighting them in the shadows because he's got to
Yes.
make sure that he prevails and he doesn't end up the way of Lincoln, McKinley, and JFK. And I did a video with Robert Ingrahams about how it's the British that kill the American presidents. So do please check that out. And Alex, I'm so sorry for rushing you. I'm so grateful that you come on my channel. I'm so grateful that you came on this early with such short notice.
Uh, my pleasure, Rich, and I look forward to the next time. But I think these discussions are worth having because we don't know. We're connecting the dots, but the more we talk and the more dots we can identify and try to connect, the sooner we'll converge on truth.
Yes, and
And
the
I think
clearer
that
we
we
will
need to
become.
converge on truth because it's extremely relevant. Humanity is at a crossroads, and how our children are going to grow up depends on where we go from here. And where we go from here depends on how well we navigate. Let's remember the push for censorship, the push for dimming the suns, for dimming the sun, the push for digital ID, um, uh, central bank digital currency, and all of this. It's not coming from the Trump administration. It's not coming from Russia. It's not even coming from China. It's coming from one place.
Yeah,
And that place is Western Europe, led by the United Kingdom.
yeah.
And so, let's keep talking about all that and let's keep our eyes on those developments.
Absolutely. And then people, I look forward to you and me meeting with Susan Kokinda of Promethean Action and Tom Luongo Gold Goats and Guns this Friday, 9th of June. We're going to be recording. So you can set them straight. That needs to be done.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, everybody, please subscribe, comment, like. I'll have the links where you can follow Alex, and you definitely should. This is Rich and Alex signing out. All the best. Bye bye.